Hello, everyone. It's Shane Conto, your Wasteland Reviewer, and welcome to the Wasteland, my weekly show where I take a deep dive into a particular film, and all aboard the Scorsese train. And I think we're about halfway through all of Scorsese's movies, and we finally hit one of the big ones with Goodfellas, 1990. And for this special episode, I have my brother Ethan on. So thank you for coming on, Ethan.
Thank you for having me. Hello, everybody.
And we're going to be talking about what it's like to be an Italian American and watching Italian Americans in movies because, they have to be in the mob.
Yep.
But for those who haven't watched my show before, we have three parts to the show. We start things off with coming attractions for the weekend that this show drops. And then we get into our feature of the week, which is Goodfellas. And then we head on into some recommendations at the end. So, Ethan, what's the movie coming out this super weekend for Christmas that you're most excited about?
The new Matrix movie.
And why is the Matrix Resurrections your movie?
I guess basically how incredible and groundbreaking the first one was. And then they kind of took a crap with the next two. Not saying they were an action packed, but they were kind of, it definitely didn't have the same feel as the original one. So hopefully this could redeem the franchise. Not that, it stands alone just from the first one, but
well, that's the thing. I feel like you could just watch the first Matrix and just leave it at that and be perfectly satisfied. And then, you get into the second one and had the architect and his weird whatever the hell he was talking about. And which was funny, before we hopped on here, we were talking about live action anime remakes because of Cowboy Bebop. So does Matrix Revolutions count? Because basically the fight between Neo and Agent Smith was just a Dragon Ball Z fight. Because I remember watching the Honest trailer, and they had side by side of, I think it was a Goku Vegeta fight. And I'm just like, oh, this is the same exact fight. So obviously heavily influenced by anime, which, pretty cool. But I'm very interested because I'm hearing all kinds of crazy stuff about this movie. And I'm like, I'm just going to look forward to checking it out finally because, Keanu's great. It's interesting to see Carrie-Anne Moss back because I feel like outside of Jessica Jones, haven't seen her in a whole lot of stuff recently. And then very interesting with some of the recasting of people. But I don't know, that first trailer that dropped with a White Rabbit in it, like hooked me. And I'm like, I'm ready. And you know what? Neo still knows Kung Fu. So there you go.
He knows even more Kung Fu now.
He can probably do all kinds of crazy stuff. And Keanu is committed and threw himself off a building 20 times to shoot one of these scenes. So going to be interesting to see it actually in action. So nobody's going to be surprised by my pick based off of the fact that when I started doing this show, I spent like the first 20 some odd weeks going through Coen Brothers movies, seeing as they're my faves. And now that they split up and seeing Joel Coen direct The Tragedy of Macbeth, I'm very excited about that. I'm going to watch it whenever it drops on the Apple TV Plus screener room, which check every day, anxiously awaiting. But it looks amazing. It's a Coen Brothers movie. It has Denzel, Frances McDormand, Brendan Gleeson, a bunch of other people. I'm excited for it. Probably not your kind of thing, but it's definitely up my alley. So I'm going to enjoy it. So, and hopefully maybe someday the Coen Brothers will come back together.
But or you just get twice the content.
That's very true, because apparently Ethan is only doing stage stuff right now. So like you would actually have to go to wherever the hell it's playing to see it. So I don't know exactly what he's working on, but they did just put Joel Cohen as director on like half of their movies because crediting BS. So technically, this isn't the only Coen Brothers movie with just Joel Cohen credited as director, but like this is one of the first times he's legit doing it by himself. But I've heard amazing things, so I'm very excited about it. But there's just there's so many things coming out for Christmas because there's The Kingsman, there's Sing 2, Don't Look Up, Parallel Mothers, American Underdog, which I get to go to a screener for on Monday, which I'm excited about for that new Kurt Warner movie. So get to watch that early. We'll see how it is, but a lot of things coming out for Christmas, so plenty of things to watch. But what we're really here for is to talk about some Goodfellas. So both of us have been watching mobster movies from a very young age, thanks to our grandfather making us watch The Godfather when I know I was 10, which means you were like 11. So that's fun. But I always like to ask my guests why they pick this particular episode. So Ethan, why did you want to come on and talk about Goodfellas?
It's definitely my favorite out of Scorsese movies.
There you go.
I feel like it's one of his more iconic.
It's definitely iconic. Like rewatching it this morning, I'm just like, oh my God, that's a famous Scorsese thing. That's a famous Scorsese thing. And, I feel like a lot of people are just like, Scorsese makes mobster movies. And like, what's his most famous mobster movie? Goodfellas. So there you go. But
the star-studded cast.
You can't go wrong with Ray Liotta, Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci, Paul Sorvino, and like 1 minute of Samuel L. Jackson popping up at one point, which was interesting rewatching that today. And it's so funny seeing a lot of famous Italian actors even popping up in small roles, and then just watching this movie and being like, they're in the Sopranos. They're in the Sopranos. They're in the Sopranos.
When they made the Sopranos, they're like, can we just pull from every Scorsese movie?
Yeah, why not? We need a bunch of Italian people. Because, even like Michael Imperioli plays Spider in this, which also, warning, if you haven't watched the show before, we spoil these movies like hard. So if you haven't watched Goodfellas and don't want a 31-year-old movie to be spoiled for you, go watch it and then come back. But like Michael Imperioli forgets Tommy's drink. He's like, oh, you want to dance? You know, dance? And like starts shooting at his feet, shoots him in the foot. And then like the next time he comes back, he tells Tommy to go F himself. And Robert De Niro's like, oh, what are you going to do? Look at this kid. You're going to let him talk to you like that? And he just shoots him. And it's just like, oh, that's what he's going to do to this kid. Poor Chris.
No, poor Chris.
So,
he deserves everything he gets.
So, fun fact, and also if you haven't watched The Sopranos, spoilers, I've only actively watched the first 2 seasons of The Sopranos. I know I like cherry pick watched it when you watched the whole entire thing for like one summer. You just watched the whole entire damn thing.
Pretty sure it was like a month.
And when I sat down to watch Many Saints in Newark, and the movie opens with Chris's gravestone, I'm like, oh, I guess Chris dies. And I'm like, which, like, to be fair, it's a mob show, because how many of these people are actually going to make it? To be fair. And, like,
to be fair.
To be fair. Also, quick plug, season 10, Letterkenny, Hulu, day after Christmas. Is that Boxing Day?
Yeah,
I'm
Unboxing Day. Is it? Yeah, it's Boxing Day. Whatever. When they return everything.
So Canadian Boxing Day, day after Christmas, is when they're releasing Letterkenny. So makes a lot of sense because Jess has been asking me for like months, when's Letterkenny coming back? I'm like, it's coming back in a week. So, but yes, to be fair, it's a mob show. So like, how many people are really going to make this out alive? So, and that was exactly how John reacted when I'm like, well, spoiler alert. He's like, what did you think he was going to survive? I'm like, maybe, I don't know. But, and, you know, obviously, when I was writing my article, because I've been writing Scribe Magazine's Wasteland Vintage Roadshow articles for all these Scorsese movies that I've been watching. And I was literally writing mine before we hopped on to record this. And because, like, when you think about being an Italian American, what kinds of things do you see in media of Italian Americans besides mobsters? Not a whole lot. You have Jersey Shore, which, for the record, some of them aren't even Italian, but giving us a bad name, and most of which are not from New Jersey. They just bring their trash here.
Only two.
And make us look bad. Because not only are we Italian Americans, but we're also from New Jersey. So basically, people just come here and dump bodies. That's what I've learned from mob movies. Go out to the Pine Barrens and just lose people. Which was funny because in Goodfellas, Jess is like, oh, they're probably taking that body to the Pine Barrens. I'm like, no, Jimmy said they were going upstate. I bet it's the Catskills. Another dumping ground where you could throw some dead bodies. And also, I'm like, Ethan knows this. I'm still looking for a car, and I was at a dealership yesterday, and I was talking to my coworker and how our lovely other brother John and all of his Crown Vics and stuff like that. And it's just like, why they have such big trunks. I'm like, why Italian people like Cadillacs and cars like that, because gotta have plenty of room in the trunk.
You do have plenty of room in the trunk.
But you have Godfather, you have The Sopranos, and you have Goodfellas. But it's very interesting because like Goodfellas and The Godfather are very different kinds of movies. Because you have The Godfather is like a real like classy kind of prestige flick. And Francis Ford Coppola, there's like a lot of like dark shadows and like this looks like this vintage kind of film. And you watch a Scorsese movie, it's all in your face. And right from the very start of this movie, when Henry Hill's starting there, that fast zoom is like, all my life, all I wanted to be was a gangster. Slam the trunk. And it's just like, yep. And that's the ride we're on. So I always like to, because, when you watch a movie, you spend a lot of time with the characters and stuff like that. So Ethan, what do you think of Henry Hill? Is this
character feels?
Oh, go ahead.
Made him. I feel like it was very stereotypical. I think they played into a lot of stereotypes in that movie.
It's true, and like basically from the start, all we know is all Henry wanted to do was to be a gangster. He wanted to do all the crooked, like the crook kinds of things. He wanted to steal stuff. He wanted to work with the mobsters. He wanted to, and that's the thing, which is so interesting about him and his wife, who's also the therapist from The Sopranos. Fun fact is that they were such a good pair together because like they wanted to live this life. They wanted the money, they wanted the luxury, they wanted to
Until
be
she
able.
didn't.
Well, to be fair, I think she still wanted it. I just don't think she did. I don't think she wanted him sleeping with other women on top of it. I feel like that was kind of the point where she kind of got pissed off about things, where it's just like she showed up to his mistress's apartment and started yelling into the box and then calling up the landlord, just like, you have a whore living in your building. Just like, dang. Really going
Well,
there.
that's allegedly part of being the mob. Everyone had their Gumar. So,
Well, that's the thing, Saturdays was for the wife and kids, Fridays were for the girlfriends. And, they all had their girlfriends out, and which is very interesting because, like, I think one of the cool things about about Goodfellas is that you get a lot of different, like, mob perspectives, because, like, you have Henry, who's all about the drugs and getting involved in that, and, like, thinking about to the Godfather when the Don's like, this is a dirty business and don't want to get involved in this, and, like, that very traditional perspective of, like, you just do, like, the gambling and, like, the stealing and stuff like that. And I feel like that's Paul Sorvino's character in this. He's like the big dad of everybody that just wanted to go keeping the traditional things. And then he had De Niro, Liotta, and Pesci on the side doing all their crazy shit that they were doing in the movie. And then obviously, like, Jimmy Conway, De Niro's character, was not involved in the whole drug thing. And what wound up getting Henry Hill caught, because he was strung out on drugs and paranoid all the time and get really messy. And that last half hour of this movie is really hard to watch.
he took too much booger sugar.
That whole entire thing where he's, like, running around that one day, strung out, paranoid. He's like, are we in Bat Country? Basically. And then, like, Uncle Eddie from Grounded for Life is his brother-in-law that he has to pick up from the hospital. And then what's his name? The actor who turned out to be, this was another one of those small little things. The actor who turned out to be the doctor at the hospital was the shit guy who pops up in a lot of Spike Lee movies. And there's a lot of actors who just have, like, tiny roles in these movies, especially this one. And then, so, like, he's running around, he's all strung out, and his wife Karen flushes all the drugs down the toilet, and he freaks the hell out because it's like Ethan's mood lighting now. But, I guess, what are some of your favorite parts of Goodfellas?
I like the what we were just talking about when they're doing they got the knock on the door and they're, like, doing a freaking rush, clogging everything down the damn toilet. Like, it's not gonna work, but okay.
Fire drill.
I guess, like, the famous, I feel like everybody knows, at least can paraphrase, when they're in the club, you're like, you think I'm funny?
Funny how?
Funny how? Funny like a clown? Do I amuse you?
She's like, how I talk, how I sound is like, you think I'm funny? And it's really scary, because especially as the movie goes on and when Tommy just starts shooting people when they get on his wrong side, you're just like, those scenes get worse and worse throughout the movie, because you're like, okay, he's shown he'll just straight up shoot somebody that gets on his nerves, so I'm a little afraid what he's going to do next. And what happens to Tommy?
Yeah, that movie is a bunch of it goes from it just escalates, and it starts off like just even like the progression of main character in the movie. It was, a tame little like errand boy to snorting coke and freaking getting all the way to the point where he gets arrested. He's gonna do hard time, and then he's gotta go and snitch on everybody.
Yeah.
Like he goes from this is a glorified life I want to be in to like, oh shit, well, yeah, witness protection.
Yeah, and I ordered spaghetti and marinara, and all I got was egg noodles and ketchup. Was not happy about that witness protection at the end. He definitely wound up in the Midwest because he was nowhere near any Italians. They probably did it on purpose.
Yeah, we don't want that shit. No. You could have barbecue. That's still good.
It's like, don't get pizza off the East Coast because I'd be disappointed. And I'll fight anybody who wants to have that Chicago deep dish argument with me. You get the best pizza in the Philly, New Jersey, New York area. Enough said. But I know some of the scenes that really stuck out to me watching, because Scorsese movie have like great music in them, and this whole film had some of the best songs of like the early days of popular rock and roll music. But then you also have Gimme Shelter when he's snort his coke, but the best one was two sequences was when Sunshine of Your Love is used, and it's a slow Scorsese zoom in on Robert De Niro, because that's the thing. The first half of the movie, they don't really use De Niro a whole lot in it. And then as the movie goes on, like Henry's working a lot more with Jimmy Conway than he is working with Paul Cicero. And you start to notice like Jimmy's a little dangerous too. He's just not going around just shooting people out of nowhere like Tommy was. And Sunshine of Your Love's playing, and it's just like the slow zoom in on De Niro. But then when he starts getting paranoid about that big job they did, and it's the whole piano slide guitar part from Layla playing in the background, and it shows all the dudes that he just had whacked. Like you find the guy and his wife in their pink Cadillac dead in a parking lot, and some kid finds them. You have, I think he's one of the guys from, hey, wait a minute. I have IMDb up because I'm like, I need to keep straight all these people in this movie. But I think he was one of the guys who pops up in The Sopranos later, but like they have him frozen, hanging from a hook in a meat truck. And it's just like, he was so frozen, it took them 2 days to defrost him to do the autopsy. And because like he was dumb and bought his wife a big fur coat when they were supposed to be lying low. But one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie, and I think this is like why this feels so genuinely Italian, is when, they kill Billy Bats. And they need to dispose of the body, but don't have a shovel. So they go to Tommy's mom's house. And Martin Scorsese's mom plays Tommy's mom and is like the most genuine Italian grandma. And it's like middle of the night. And she's just like, oh, go sit down and relax. And then there's just a giant table full of food. Because, grandma would totally do that. Just like a whole entire table full of food in the middle of the night. It's like, Henry, why do you just sit there so quiet? Why are you talking? And then Tommy is like, hey, Ma, can I borrow this knife? And he has like a kitchen knife this big, and he's just like swinging it around and everything. And his mom's just like, completely oblivious to all the terrible things that their son's doing, but you know, got to feed the kids. And it's just like, yep, that's why I was a fat kid all the time. There you go. But this is just one of those kinds of movies where it's like you can just sit and watch this and just be purely entertained for 2.5 hours because it's really entertaining. Obviously, like the last half hour of it gets a lot less entertaining and a lot more like hard to watch and like pretty intense. Like the whole thing where Karen goes to see Jimmy for the last time, and he's like, "Yeah, go down the street. You make a right at the end of the corner. Like go in there." And he's just like, "Yeah, go on." And it's just like she is totally gonna die if she walks into that store, like dead, and that kind of stuff. But like before that, I feel like this and like Wolf of Wall Street are the kinds of movies that is just so excessive and crazy. You're just like entertained watching how crazy these people's lives are. And, you know, has a good sense of humor about it until you realize, oh crap, this is gonna go bad quick. But and then you could also look at it deeply at like the commentary that it does look at like criminal life and stuff like that. Because the crazy thing is everybody in this movie loved the life. They wanted to live it. It's just varying degrees of paranoia. And you know, you get thrown in jail and you get to have all the lovely Italian food. I've never seen prison like that in any other movie. Like chopping the garlic with a razor blade and stuff like that. But what are some of the other things that you like about the movie, Ethan?
I guess one of the things was just getting to see all the actors that were in the movie, because you've seen, you know, we all saw, you know, Robert De Niro and stuff, and obviously we didn't see it in 1990. I was born in 1990.
Yeah, I wasn't born yet.
We had seen, you know, movies before that, I'm sure, you know, because you had even like Joe Pesci. I'm pretty sure the first movie I ever saw Joe Pesci in was Home Alone.
It had to be, right? Because like,
yeah,
I feel like that's the most age appropriate thing for us to
that
watch.
he's in. Yeah, and then Robert De Niro being in stuff.
You know,
pretty sure I saw Godfather 2 before I saw. Pretty sure I saw Taxi Driver or whatever before I saw Goodfellas.
I'm pretty sure I definitely watched The Untouchables before I watched this too, and him playing Al Capone. But you know what movie Robert De Niro was in that we saw as kids? The Rocky and Bullwinkle movie.
Yep.
Because he was fearless leader. He was
Voir, sir.
No, so he was fearless leader because George Costanza was Boris, Jason Alexander. But yeah, basically Nazi looking fearless leader was Robert De Niro with like a monocle and everything.
But you got to see like all the, even pretty sure I played Vice City before I saw Goodfellas. So you had Ray Liotta.
Yes.
And as the main character in that. Other things Ray Liotta was in before even saw Goodfellas. So it just, I'm sure if you were older, you still probably seen all those people before. And then you see Goodfellas and you have all them who are already they were already well known in Hollywood, and they're like, no one's gonna say no to Martin Scorsese. So they're like, yeah, we'll be in your movie.
Yeah. And like just looking through here, there's a lot of people from The Sopranos too. Like a lot of people. Because like Frank Vincent, who played Billy Batts, was Phil Leotardo in it. Like Michael Imperioli and So Tony Sirico, who plays uh Walnuts in The Sopranos, popped up in this at some point. And real random cameo because Vincent Pastore, who plays Sal in The Sopranos, was literally just the guy with the coat rack at the Coco Cabana. And that was it. Just popping up in like a really tiny thing. Because I'm sitting there, I'm like, wait a minute. That's Sal from The Sopranos. And then he didn't pop up again in the movie. I'm like, and I looked at the credits and he literally was coat rack guy. And, I mentioned Samuel L. Jackson was in this for like a whole hot minute. And then, 4 years later, he was in Pulp Fiction. So obviously that made a big difference for him. But that's definitely the thing, because like, especially having watched so many Martin Scorsese movies up to this point and seeing De Niro obviously in a lot of them, because there was Goodfellas, and then the next movie that I'm going to be watching is Cape Fear, which he's also in. Very different movie, very different performance. And then he was in Casino and then didn't pop up in another movie until The Irishman, which also I'm pretty sure I have you down for that too. So watching 4 hours of The Irishman again.
Yep.
Which I have on a Criterion Blu-ray because
I found a place. It's a DVD place and retro video game place, and they have a whole rack of Criterion collection.
What?
Yep.
Dang.
Come down to Asheville.
But and so it was funny because Jess even pointed out when they started playing Gimme Shelter at one point, I'm just like, she's like, oh, there's Rolling Stones. Because, Rolling Stones is going to pop up in a Scorsese movie. But I just feel like if you think about mafia movies or shows, there's the big three. It's The Godfather, it's The Sopranos, and it's Goodfellas. And they all offer a bit of a different kind of flair to them. And this is definitely like the most edgy in your face kind of thing. Because like because I feel like there's just like a classierness to The Godfather and a lot more of like besides Sonny and the hit at the end of the movie, some of the most gruesome things you don't even see on screen. Like, you don't see a horse getting its head cut off. You do see a guy getting bashed in the face by a gun 11 times in a row in Goodfellas. That one's hard to watch. When Henry goes up and beats that guy's face in for trying to rape Karen, which is like, not a good decision, dude. Picked on the wrong woman. And surprised he didn't kill him, to be perfectly honest. But what were you going to say?
They lay on it pretty thick, the stereotypes so in Goodfellas. You don't really you don't see it too much in Sopranos. You definitely don't. They don't. It's like it's very very little that it happens in the Godfather.
I think The Godfather is a lot more subdued too, kind of thing. And then The Sopranos is interesting because it kind of deconstructs a lot of it. Because like I know one of the biggest things is like Tony goes to therapy, and that's weird for like a mob show. Like you see your main character who runs a family going to therapy, and like that's one of the big cruxes of the show. And
it's also weird for Italian families, period.
Yes, in general, not just mob families, just Italian people in general. Feel like you don't go to talk to other people about your feelings.
Nope.
And I feel like most Italian men, it's not really like you talk about your feelings. Generally not something that you really look at. So, and obviously, like there's a lot of interesting dynamics in this movie. And, right off the bat, when they show Henry and Tommy going out on that double date with Karen and her friend, and like Henry's a complete dick, doesn't even pay attention to her, doesn't do anything, and then stands her up for the second date. And when she showed up and got in his face, then he's like, I kind of like this. And it's just like her sticking up for herself. And then, I think the moment you realize that Karen and Henry were made for each other was when, most of my friends, if their boyfriend came in and handed them a gun, they would have been running away. But you know what? It kind of turned me on. And it's just like, I think you're made for this kind of thing. And they have a very interesting dynamic in this movie. And obviously at some point things go sour because, Henry just wants to go date a whole bunch of other women. And just like, Karen's not very happy about it. Because what's funny is the one that I have right now is an old DVD because it's a 2-sided DVD.
Oh boy.
So, because this is a 2.5 hour movie, and I put the disc in wrong to start the movie, and it starts right in the middle of the movie. And it's a scene where Karen's sitting on top of Henry with a gun in his face. And then I'm like, oh, I definitely put on the wrong side. Their marriage hasn't gone bad this quick. Like flipping it. It's a very interesting shot because that's a hard thing to act, because it's not like they're actually filming the two of them staring at each other. What's really happening is Karen's straddling a cameraman, and you have the cameras pointing up, and then Ray Liotta has a cameraman straddling him with the camera pointing down at him. And like they have to act against a camera, not like an actual person, which those are the interesting things that you think about when you're making a movie. Which obviously Scorsese is one of the greatest directors ever. So there's all kinds of great filmmaking here, and like the whole one take of them going into the Copacabana, like the whole camera following through the basement and the whole entire place. Super Scorsese, like does that a lot kind of thing. And it's been very interesting because how many Scorsese movies have I watched in a row now? Actually, I have a spreadsheet. That's why I keep things in track like this. So I have gone. This is my 15th straight week of watching a Scorsese movie. And watching a lot of Scorsese movies, you realize, every director kind of has their thing. And like Goodfellas is like the culmination of all these things thrown together. So like you see all those little Scorsese-isms, having classic rock music montages, having Layla playing in the background while a whole bunch of dead bodies show up places.
That's the funny part, because it's like it really does, like it lays them on thick like stereotypes, but like they don't play stereotypical music. They don't load up on like Frank Sinatra and like Dean Martin.
No,
and
I think they only played one Dean Martin song in this movie, and it's like Kick in the Head. I remember them playing that. They play a lot of. They had some like Motown and stuff like that in this, which was interesting, and some like a little bit of like doo-wop stuff, especially when he was a kid. Like, because it captures the time period really well. Because as the film goes on, you start hearing Cream, Eric Clapton, George Harrison music, and stuff like that popping up. And it makes a lot of sense too, because one, Scorsese used a lot of Clapton music in The Color of Money before this as well. And Eric Clapton's no stranger to scoring music because like he does all the guitar in the Lethal Weapon movies. So like the soundtrack to Lethal Weapon, you hear that like that's all Eric Clapton. And then I was just talking about this 2 weeks ago because 2 weeks ago I did The Color of Money by myself, and Robbie Robertson from the band scored it. And then Last Temptation of Christ that I watched last week and talked to with Alex, Peter Gabriel did the score for.
Interesting.
Interesting choice. Well, to be fair, Last Temptation of Christ is a series of very interesting choices, which makes a lot of Catholic people really pissed off. But the thing is, it's like this kind of I feel like there's one other song I'm trying to remember, and like you can tell that Scorsese likes blues music because like Muddy Waters pops up in Color of Money. And I think, I forget who it was in this movie, when Henry's having his like drugged out paranoia running around day, they cut to a blues song. And I know very specifically they use Smokestack Lightning, the original blues song in Wolf of Wall Street. They use a whole bunch of blues music in Wolf of Wall Street, which is interesting. So it's also pretty cool. Scorsese makes cool movies with very scummy people in them. It's funny because two things. One, for my movie club that I do on my podcast, my friend Matt, Ethan, you've met Matt. We ask Matt every month, would you take this sleep character to Applebee's? Because Matt loves Applebee's.
Crapplebee's.
Yeah. I haven't been to a Crapplebee's in a long time. Last time was with Matt. It was 2 years ago, I think, for his birthday, pre-COVID. But like last month we did They Live. I'm like, would you take Rowdy Roddy Piper to Applebee's? Yeah. A lot of the times though, we didn't take that person to Applebee's.
You have to get him some bubble gum because he's all out of it.
Exactly. He's all out of bubble gum. And then the other thought too is I was just watching Voir, which actually I'll hold that for a second. Did you have anything else that you wanted to say about Goodfellas?
1 second. Waking up at 4 a.m. is getting to me. I had something in my head. Give me a second. I like the progression of it. Hold on. Knocked out my earpiece. The progression of it, because it started off pretty mellow,
mm-hmm.
and then like towards a little bit, I guess, before like the middle of the movie, not quite the middle, it was slowly getting to the point where shit's getting real. And then by the end of it, just like, well, that all the way at this end of the movie and this end of the movie are completely friggin' different.
Well, that escalated quickly. Brick killed a guy with a trident.
Because I feel the progression of Henry and the movie progressing was the same kind of like tempo. Mm-hmm. I'd say they follow each other, I think.
Yeah, because like the tension of the movie and how real it's getting is going like this, and then Henry's mental state is like going like this, and just
driving the big X.
Yep, diving deep into those drugs. I think one of the big moments too is when they kill Tommy, and because that completely changes the tone of the movie too. Because up to that point, you have Tommy who's coming in there screaming F words and being Joe Pesci, being funny, and because he's a funny guy. But the thing is, it's like when they shoot him, and this was like contractually obligated Robert De Niro acting when he was in the phone booth. He's just like and like bashing the phone into the that handle of it, and he literally pushes the payphone over because, like, you know, this movie took place in like it was made in 1990 and took place before then, and you're just like, payphones. But like,
we're like the last generation that will know what the hell they are.
yes, I have been in a payphone. I have used a payphone. All you children out there don't know what we're talking about.
You don't know the struggle.
You don't even know what it means to hang up a phone. You literally have to hang it back up.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Or the rotary phones like we had upstairs.
That was more fun, honestly. I feel like that made making a phone call more fun. But, you know.
Except when you screw up.
And then you have to start all over again. There you go. You're also spoiled with your cell phones. But like that was a big moment in the film, and that's when things started to really turn. And I think like the real definitive turning point, and I think it's when Give Me Shelter does start playing, and you see Henry with just this pile of cocaine. And you're just like, feel like his life's going to take some bad turns here. Because you put
cocaine doesn't make your life any better.
No, it does not. You could ask Michael Bolton about being Tony Montana and snort mountains of cocaine. But
Captain Jack Sparrow.
Lonely Island is the shit. So there you go. All the fun extra bonus things that you get on Welcome to the Wasteland that had nothing to do with Goodfellas. But yes.
Segues. I fell off one once.
God, I think we can just go off on references nonstop. Well,
we're lucky John's not here.
Well, honestly, if you get the two of us off on Adam Sandler, I'm pretty sure we could just sit here for 3 hours and just quote Adam Sandler movies.
Stop staring at me, Swan. Shampoo's better.
No, conditioner's better.
Conditioner makes the hair silky and smooth. Oh, really, fool?
Now we could be talking about crime thrillers with Adam Sandler, like Uncut Gems, which is like Adam Sandler does a Scorsese movie.
Friggin' incredible movie.
Yes. Two homeless rabbis, the Safdie brothers. But anyway, so that was Goodfellas and some other things. Next week, I should be having Ben from Sif Pop coming on to talk about Cape Fear and Robert De Niro and a crazy Southern accent. Damn God. And being a total creep. And Nick Nolte.
See, cocaine and other drugs is make you look like Nick Nolte.
See, this is Nick Nolte. You don't want to be Nick Nolte. Which actually, this is a perfect segue to one of my recommendations. And this is a show that I literally just watched this morning. I watched all 6 episodes, and they're only 20-minute video essays. It's called Voir, or View in French. And it's produced by David Fincher, and it's on Netflix. And basically it's 6 video essays focusing on different aspects of film. So like if you love movies like I do and just want to talk about movies or hear other people talk about movies, it's a great show to watch. And to be honest, it's just 2 hours commitment because they're 20 minutes a piece. And one of the episodes talked about, and this is from Drew McWeeny, is do films have to have likable protagonists to be a good movie? And Martin Scorsese says no. Because if you watch a Martin Scorsese movie, 99% of the time, the protagonist is a piece of shit. So they talked about Goodfellas, because like Henry Hill's not a good guy. Talked about Wolf of Wall Street, Jordan Belfort, not a good man. Raging Bull, Jake LaMotta, not a good guy. And then the pinnacle, Taxi Driver, Travis Bickle is not somebody you should be rooting for. He is extremely disturbed human being. But
Just a little bit.
If you do idolize Travis Bickle, you should probably get some help. Because, you know, that, the Joker, probably not guys you want to be rooting for. But the thing is, it's like, it's really interesting because there are directors that really live in that space of like, I don't really make likable people. Because like, if you think about it, outside of like Hugo and The Departed, because like Billy Costigan's a good man. The Departed. Sorry, I messed up. It's The Departed. Are you a cop? Are you a cop? Oh, I can't wait for The Departed. Which, quick side note, there's a whole bunch of videos of people in theaters screaming, cheering for Spider-Man No Way Home and stuff like that, which I'm not going to say a word about because I'm not a dick and I'm not going to ruin anything. But people are like, and this is exactly what Scorsese was talking about, calling these amusement park rides. And I'm like, you know what's one of the moments where I remember jumping up and cheering watching a movie? The end of The Departed. The first time I ever watched The Departed, I bought it for $3. Bought it for $3 at the Princeton Record Exchange, my freshman year of college, sitting in my dorm room, watching it for the first time, so pissed at where that movie went, and Matt Damon's getting away with it. And I'm just like, and then all of a sudden, when he walks into his apartment and he sees those booties, and that camera pans up and it's Marky Mark with a gun, and he shoots Matt Damon, I literally jumped out of my bed in my dorm and cheered. So there you go. You can cheer at Martin Scorsese movies too. Probably only like one of them. I don't think you want to be cheering at the end of most Scorsese movies, especially like The Irishman. He's just old and alone, just sitting in his nursing home, and it's just like, this is real sad. This is a sad place to be, and it's all obviously on purpose. But like, yeah, I definitely cheered at the end of the part. So if you love movies, and also one of the episodes talked about profanity and stuff in movies, and the whole episode was about 48 hours. And it's just like, oh my God, Nick Nolte doesn't look like trash. Things went very bad for Nick Nolte. But I digress. So interested in that. Even, what's the show that you wanted to recommend to people?
Yellowstone.
And why should people check out Yellowstone?
I was gonna say before, it's kind of funny. You would think we're talking about like a mob movie, right? And then you're talking about, it's kind of Western, like a modern Western, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's very similar in how mob movies or mob shows go.
Yeah.
They have something, they have a family, they have a extended family. You don't fuck with them. You don't fuck with what they have, or somebody's going to get murked.
Yep.
But this movie, like, Yellowstone is, I mean, you have Kevin Costner. That's really all you need to say, because it's like anything he's in is incredible. You get to see beautiful views of Montana, literally the
Beautiful
whole
show.
show. Um, the action is incredible. I think it's a good mix of action, story, and it's kind of psychological too, because you're kind of like getting invested in the family and like the ranch as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
So like every little thing that happens and what each character's going through, um, you kind of feel it a little bit, because you can't help but like um, getting invested in the characters. And then you have uh, Rip, the one of the most badass characters you're ever going to see in anything, not just like a western or something. He's just a badass mother. And it's crazy seeing like what he looks like right now, as like if you watched like the Riddick Pitch Black, I think, um
He was
where
in
he was a
that.
bad guy. He was freaking Carter Verone in Too Fast Too Furious, and he turns into this guy because he kind of played like a pretty boy like throughout a lot of his like movies or like TV shows he was in, and then he's Rip, the most badass mother effer on the planet. And the soundtrack's incredible.
So his four big credits on IMDb, you know how on IMDb you have your credits, is Too Fast, Too Furious, is Carter Verone, Benny from Dazed and Confused, and then Billy from Good Will Hunting.
Oh yeah, he was in Goodwill. Yeah.
Which one was Billy?
The like they all wear tracks. He's just one of the like the four friends that are like, it's Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, him,
He's
and the
the
other
other
guy.
friend?
Yeah.
What?
Yep.
I
And
definitely
he's
didn't pick up on that.
and he was in the Riddick. He was bad guy in Pitch Black, or the Chronicles of Riddick. I forget which one it
Holy
was.
crap. I'm looking at this picture of the four of them from Good Will Hunting and being like, wait a minute. That's so weird.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. One thing I learned from watching the first season of Yellowstone. Here's a few things that I learned from watching the first season of Yellowstone. One, you don't want to get fired
Nope.
from this ranch. Not a good life choice. Two, don't mess with Kevin Costner. And three, the Native Americans aren't going to lay down either. Because it's Gil Birmingham, right? Who's in this? Yep,
I
Gil
don't know their name.
Birmingham. Yeah, Gil Birmingham was also in Taylor Sheridan's Hell or High Water that he wrote. So that's where I know him from, which chef's kiss of a movie.
That movie is friggin' incredible.
Yep. All four main characters are perfect. Like
Yes.
I don't think I've liked Chris Pine in anything more than I did in Hell or High Water.
Almost literally nothing.
I love him in Into the Woods as well.
Just more like Chris Wine.
Oh,
But no, he was good.
He's great. Ben Foster, his brother is somebody.
Yeah, his brother was a psycho.
Psycho. And then Jeff Bridges going full blown Jeff Bridges as a Texas Ranger. And then Gil Birmingham's his partner. So great. And I love Taylor Sheridan. Like anything that Taylor Sheridan does, well, that's a lie. I'm not a huge fan of Mayor of Kingstown. that I'm watching right now that he made. I'm like iffy about it. But like everything else that he's made, I've really, really enjoyed. Like Wind River's great. But my recommendations, so I'm not going to say anything about the movie. I'm just going to say you all should go see Spider-Man No Way Home. Because I'm not going to say a word about the movie. It was real hard to write a review about that movie without spoiling anything. And somehow I did it. And that's about it. I do also want to recommend, which I literally saw today, Nightmare Alley, because it's not doing so hot this weekend because everybody literally is seeing Spider-Man instead. But if you love Guillermo del Toro and you love that like creepy, eerie, haunting period piece, gothic, noirish kind of thing, it has a lot of the same feel to Shape of Water. But here's the thing, there are no fishmen. So
No fishy sex.
there is no grinding Nemo in this one.
I can't stop.
And I killed my brother. I have to credit Jess because she's the one who I first heard that from. And
That's a zinger.
It's creepy, it's eerie. Bradley Cooper's amazing in it. And it's cool seeing him in something. This is his first acting role, I think, since Stars Born. So he really kills it. Kate Blanchett's great in it. Rooney Mara is really good in it. Richard Jenkins is a despicable piece of crap in this movie.
What was the last movie she was in?
Who?
Rooney Mara.
I feel like I saw her in something recently, and I'm trying to remember what the hell it is. Because I watch too many movies. So
that's why, like me asking you, you feel like, oh yeah, she was just in one, but like I haven't seen her in like.
Oh, that's a
friggin' Girl with the Dragon.
This is why I felt so weird, is because she hasn't been in anything since 2018. Because she played Mary Magdalene in a Mary Magdalene film where Joaquin Phoenix played Jesus, and she's in a relationship with Joaquin Phoenix. And then they were also in another movie together in the same year called Don't Worry, He Won't Get Far on Foot, which is about a famous cartoonist who's wheelchair bound. And Joaquin Phoenix plays him, and Rooney Mara plays a love interest of his. But like, besides that, like she was in Ghost Story in 2017, Lion in 2016, Kubo and the Two String in 2016. She plays the really, really, really creepy twin sisters in that. Ugh! Just hearing her voice gives me chills in that movie. Oh God, she was in Pan, that Hugh Jackman jukebox musical where he sings "Smells Like Teen Spirit" as Captain Hook, because that's a thing. Yeah, it was weird shit.
No.
Yeah, Nightmare Alley is really cool, and like you have Willem Dafoe in it. Ron Perlman returns to doing some more Guillermo del Toro movies. Ron Perlman plays the strong man at the carnival, and Willem Dafoe plays the guy who runs the carnival. And basically,
why wouldn't he?
Huh?
Why wouldn't he?
Yeah, exactly. And Bradley Cooper plays a con man who is a mentalist. And, you know, he's really just screwing with people and trying to con them out of money and stuff like that. And things go sideways, but you should see it. It's also 2.5 hours. A lot of movies coming out now around these parts are 2 hours and 20 minutes plus. It's crazy. But that's all we have for you all on Welcome to the Wasteland this week. And like I mentioned, next week we're going to be jumping into Cape Fear. And it looks like I'll be continuing to do Scorsese until mid-April when Ethan joins me for The Irishman. So that'll be the last one. And
unless there's a very big surprise and he comes out with another one right before April.
Well, no, he does have Killers of the Flower Moon coming out this coming year in 2022, but I'm guessing that's coming out in like December. What I'm going to do though is if I've already done a director on here and they have a new film coming out, I'm going to do a special episode. So I'm going to do a special episode for the Tragedy of Macbeth to keep my Coen brothers completion. The thing is, the second director I did was Stanley Kubrick, and I don't think Kubrick's making any more movies, seeing as he's been dead for 22 years. So I don't think that's going to
still making albums. So
he barely finished his last movie. He barely finished Eyes Wide Shut. And basically his next movie was going to be Artificial Intelligence, and Steven Spielberg made it instead. So, which that movie feels like a Kubrick thing and feels so weird with Steven Spielberg making it. But if you want to say, and who the next director I'm going to take a deep dive on for Welcome to the Wasteland, check out my Instagram page every day as I'm doing a poll. I'm doing a 128 director tournament. And each day I do a matchup. Today's matchup was David Cronenberg versus Jason Reitman. So Cronenberg, who made The Fly and Videodrome and like History of Violence and Eastern Promises, stuff like that. And then Jason Reitman, who made Juno, Up in the Air, Ghostbusters Afterlife that just came out. So keep an eye on it. My prediction, Final Four: Fincher, Paul Thomas Anderson, Tarantino, and Christopher Nolan. Because I know white dudes on the internet.
Tarantino.
Potentially, I think Steven Spielberg and Hitchcock might get up there too. Last time I did this, John Carpenter made the final 6. And that made me very happy.
He should be number one.
I
will do if somehow it happens. we're gonna be talking about Halloween.
Yes, I don't know who else I would want to have on here besides you to talk about Halloween, seeing as I watched it for the first time with you. So, all those slasher movies.
Hopefully, you can edit a 4-hour video.
Would it be the first time?
It's going to take a minute.
Yeah, God. My first podcast with Alex and Matt went 3.5 hours. We had to cut it into 2 episodes. But, Ethan, thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
The fact that you've been up very early, and now it's...
Oh, no. Not today. Just all week.
Just all week.
Yeah.
Ethan's a trucking man now. But
I may deliver your beer if you're in anywhere near North Carolina.
There you go. And thank all of you out there for tuning in and supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.